All right, I'll be Jeremy. Welcome to Genius Wednesdays, where we have some of the brightest minds in the industry. My name's Stephen Kwan, and I will start with a few topics. We have others on the line: Tim, Dennis, Jeremy, Nick, and other geniuses that I can't see their name right now, but I know they're on here. So I will present a few themes that myself and others had spoken about and we thought these were of great importance. So here we go. Let me get to this. Can everyone see the document titled
Yep.
Genius Wednesday? Yes? Okay. I'm going to start at the very beginning, as I think that oftentimes many of us take for granted that we once didn't know what cryptocurrency was, or a wallet, or a Satoshi, or a white paper, or a roadmap, or how you price it, what a use case meant. So I'm going to kind of give a couple basic definitions. I know many on the call, I would assume that all on the call know this, but bear with me. I think some of these words are actually used too often, and people are held to them maybe by a standard that is unreasonable, but that's simply my opinion. So I looked up the definition. A white paper. This was something that was in the original Bitcoin founders' notes, and it's basically a semi-formal document to help investors or interested parties learn about the project. I feel that it may be a little overused since the term is 10 years old, and it's simply a business plan or an outline. And the white paper and roadmap, I guess, are somewhat interchangeable, where they essentially could just be one document. Oh, by the way, a white paper in the US is not a legal document at this current date. A formalized plan for a blockchain organization structured as an LLC, LP, or corporation is more of a legal meaning. Now, a roadmap, simply timelines, dates, and goals. This also is not a legal document, but just kind of a way that investors can gauge if the project is on target to meet its initial goals by their initial timelines. Now, I'll compare that to the equity world, which is something I have experience in, worked on Wall Street for about 20 years, and still run a family office, so involved in many investments, including blockchain. In the equity world, earnings are often estimates are done by banks for investors and internal analysts of the company for the company's own metrics, so they can see where they are on a daily, weekly, quarterly basis. Oftentimes, these parties talk frequently, especially in larger entities, as they try to match the company's expectations to that of investors, so you don't have, I guess, wild gyrations on every earnings announcement, where a bank may ratchet earnings down one, two, three times. The stock price slowly comes down. All of a sudden, the equity has comes out with earnings and has beat expectations, and essentially bounces right back up to where it was before, or higher generally, since equities over time have increased. Now, I'm going to give a brief definition or opinion of startup venture capital. I mean, a startup is an organization, in my mind, that is pre-revenue, or just basically an idea, someone that might write a business plan, a group of friends, associates. That would mean that most of the blockchain projects, especially those that were in the ICO market, would be candidates for venture capital, as the great majority had no revenue and many had no working product, more of a business plan and kind of a dollar and a dream type theory. So I looked up and I've done a few investments here and there, and numerous sources, and my range for this would be about 75% of startups do not last more than 1 year. Hence, many cryptocurrencies end up at the dreaded 1 or 2 sat level, or even just with no exchange, no team, and an empty bank account. Does that mean they failed? No, it doesn't. It simply means that they were maybe a little bit ahead of themselves. So when you go into venture capital, it's generally private, and it is generally by accredited investors who can weather the storm of large losses, large gains. It's not, people invest what they can afford to invest. Now, in cryptocurrency, the early years, many of these companies, I guess, went public essentially in ICO, bringing your private blockchain or private idea to a public market, which an exchange is. People you don't know, anyone can trade it. And these investors, I don't know what percentage of cryptocurrency users are accredited. No idea. I'm not going to guess. But I would say it's less than that of those in traditional venture capital. These investors seem to want many answers and want the old when moon, i.e., when is the price going to go parabolic and go up 1,000 times or some magnitude thereof. And that's not realistic. Hopefully the team and project manager and any financial consultants or advisors have priced their ICO or their public blockchain at a reasonable price, so the expectations should be met. So,
You're supposed to be listening in on these meetings.
nonetheless, they're the blockchain companies that went public and that still do. Many are held to a far different standard than in traditional venture capital or equity markets. My next point is, I guess, the measure of pricing. Um, those at Coin Genius have heard this, and at this point, it sounds like a broken record, but I'm gonna whip through it anyway. 100 million Bitcoin Satoshis equals 1 Bitcoin. There's little argument there. That's just how it is. 8 zeros after the decimal. So if I told you Litecoin is 0.0068 Bitcoin or Ethereum is 0.0204 Bitcoin, human psychology shows that we tend to think greater of we have a more positive feeling of the larger number, hence Bitcoin. So in other FX markets, I'm going to use the dollar pound and the yuan dollar as examples. Many of you who are familiar may know this very well. $1 is 0.776 pounds, or 1 pound is $1.28. It's the same thing. So $1 is 7 yuan. 1 yuan is $0.142. Now, looking here, if I quote it like this, 1 Ethereum is 0.0204 Bitcoin, or for 1 Bitcoin, you get 49 Ethereum. I don't know. I guess my brain goes toward the larger number, and it's less, I guess it's a slightly less negative feeling. And I think many of us know that there's more than one trader or investor in cryptocurrency market that probably acts on emotion and psychology. Next up, Bitcoin is the largest per unit asset in the digital asset market. It also has the largest market cap. We know this. I'm going to compare Berkshire Hathaway to Apple and Amazon. I don't know if everyone's familiar with it, but Berkshire Hathaway is 332,000 per share. It has a market cap of $551 billion. Apple is 255 a share, market cap of $1.1 trillion. Amazon, $1,789 per share, market cap's 887. So if we look at things using the cryptocurrency metric, if I say Apple's 0.00767 BRK, all of a sudden Apple doesn't, I'm looking at Apple in a different light. Or how about Apple's 0.14 Amazon? Well, and that's how we're measuring. So if we're measuring it in terms of a one-to-one basis, as we know that is how the Satoshi trade works, then it's probably not the most even way. And yes, the next is a plug. And like to thank Tim Bogert, Tim Hesselsweet, Nick, Sam, Thomas, Jeremy, Christina, everyone else I met in Las Vegas and that has worked on this idea. Michael, Marco, Taras, Josue. If I missed anyone, sorry, but I know that this is something that in my mind is easy to do. It should take 10 seconds, but I realize that there's a little more to that. So instead of comparing one Ripple, which is 30 cents, to one Bitcoin, I think we can probably agree the likelihood of Ripple passing Bitcoin on a per unit basis is pretty slim, as that would give it an astronomical market cap. Moving on, and this will be my kind of closing statement, and then I will open it up. Mr. Bourne asked me to speak briefly on Bitcoin halving. Obviously, it's a large event. What is priced in, what is not, I don't know. That's probably not why you're listening to this, to hear some guy say, I don't know. But I don't look at individual asset prices and make price predictions. What I do very well is look at relationships and say, this is trading on the inexpensive side versus this, or this signal has worked and it was the driver in a rally. Now it's turning. Let's see, could people have been trading this ahead of time? I'll give you the chart. A year ago, Bitcoin 6,500, 9 months ago 3,700, 6 months ago 6,000, 3 months ago 12,000, present day 9,300. What does that mean for where it'll be at halving? Like I said, I don't know, but I don't think this is the right chart to look at. Why? Why is looking at a Bitcoin chart not the right chart to look at? Because what am I comparing it to? Well, you wanted the keys to the castle. Here it is. What are we not seeing in this? Some of the key drivers, maybe interest rates, Bitcoin dominance. Let's take a look at those. So here, this is euro dollars. Euro dollars increasing in price means interest rates are decreasing in price. A generally accepted metric to, I guess, a floor trader to calculate rates would be 1 minus the euro dollar price, or 100 minus the euro dollar price, and add a percent. So from 3.25% a year ago to 1.7% now. Pretty steep decline in interest rates. So let's look. So if one would kind of follow that trend, you got involved in Bitcoin in the spring or late winter, and the high was right in July. So maybe there's other drivers besides the halving. Let's take a look. If you would have got in this zone, followed the euro dollars when they started to significantly increase, hence rates decreasing, July would have been the first area that the trend and relationship kind of broke down. And as we can see here, interest rates not very exciting ever since the Fed's kind of disappointed. But what do we see? Let's take a look. We actually see that, well, that's the punchline. Let's go to Bitcoin dominance. That's a better one. Present day, it's 67%. 3 months ago, 71. 6 months ago, only 54. 9 months ago, 52. 1 year ago, 51. So it has been increasing sharply, but over the past 3 months, it's decreased a tiny bit. Let's see if that might be a key in interest rates. Sharp decrease from point A to point to today. Still a sharp decrease from 3 months to present day. 6 months, yes. 9 months, yes. I'm sorry, 9 months. Let's take a look. Wait, so interest rates are a couple basis points higher than they were 9 months ago or 3 months ago. So there's your correlation. You want it there. I hope a lot of people listen to this and do well. I simply like to present information rather than make a prediction, but I would say that if people wanted to explore global interest rates, sharp decreases and increases, and compare those to Bitcoin's relative performance, i.e., Bitcoin dominance against the whole asset class, that may lead you to the answers you seek, besides, simply just the Bitcoin halving. The last story of the week, and this is where I would open up to anyone because I'm not super familiar with this. So, from what I understand, there were 20 billion stellar in circulation a week ago. And the maximum that could be in circulation, in theory, if the foundation emptied the coffers, so to speak, would have been 104 billion. They burned, or for those not in crypto, destroyed approximately 50 billion or half. So now they have 40% of their coins actually available for use. And as noted, many projects want that. I guess the holy grail at this point in time is, what is your use case? Are people using it for something? I'll say this. I've never gone to a store and spent a share of Apple. I've never gone to a store and spent a share of Amazon. I've never gone to a store and traded a barrel of crude oil for my groceries. And I've never brought a bond to the pet store to pay for pet food. So, in essence, what another misnomer in cryptocurrency is, what is your use case? Oftentimes, the entity is its use case. It's an organization. You are investing in Stellar, or you are investing in Ripple. Those are organizations. Other things like Bitcoin, Litecoin, where there's not really a structured organization, those are more like commodities. Like Bitcoin, you're investing in gold. Litecoin, you're investing in silver. There's no 1-800 help number. But with Stellar and EOS and Dash and Tron and Hack and a ton of others, there are names and faces now, and that's kind of how the scope is changing. And that is why there have been so many issues, in my opinion, in this space, because now you can see a person's name, you can see their face, but many of the investors choose to remain nameless. So it's fairly easy to call someone out, or easier for many to call someone out when the spotlight's on someone else and everyone can see them, but that person calling them out can't be seen. So this would be my thoughts on Stellar and what occurred. Currently, there's 25% of their float, or 5 billion coin, roughly, change hands on a daily basis. That's according to CoinMarketCap's adjusted numbers. I haven't watched every single trade on every exchange, so if someone thinks it's great or not great, that's their opinion. No opinion here. That only leaves 15 billion that in theory would be available for use. So to make something extremely scarce when you're wanting it to be used as a payment mechanism, I guess I disagree with that. Making a scarcity and increasing the price and decreasing the supply does not make it more friendly for the average person to actually use Stellar to conduct business. Could I be wrong? Yes, it's simply my opinion. And the other thing I thought is, well, gosh, in a time where there's a ton of projects and people all over the world that could use financial assistance, why wouldn't you just sell those and, I guess, give the money to a charity or a person or a country or a project, someone in need? And I'll close on this. It's because for an actual use case in currency world, just as there is in the yuan dollar or the pound dollar or euro Swiss, you have multiple layers of bids. You might see the CME futures, and that gives you X level, and it's very tight. Go to a smaller market, it might be even tighter for a small amount. But you go to an institutional level, like if the Swiss bank needs to hedge their dollar exposure, they're not going to, fxcurrencyexchange.com and trading it. They're going OTC, and there's multiple layers of bidding. I don't know how long it would take to sell 50 billion Stellar. It looks like it's about 2 days worth of CMC volume. So I could imagine that they have a capital markets group and would have done this over time. But I don't know. That's just me. I think there's better ways to dispose of an asset than to simply throw them away. And that's the end. So I know these are kind of random topics. Jeremy, I hope that was cool that I covered a bunch of
Yep.
different tidbits. I'm going to stop the screen share and I would open it up for, how about,
Hey, Steve, I'd like
yeah,
to comment on the Stellar Lumens.
what are your, I open it up. Anyone with any questions, concern, comments, different topics?
Well,
Yeah,
well,
let's start with
Stellar Lumens.
Thomas, because I know he has similar thoughts to me about Stellar in terms of what they've already laid out in their white paper. So go for it.
Well, the first thing I would say about Stellar Lumens, and Steve, you spoke about, well, they're going to be pulling currency out of the supply, which is true. But unlike a lot of coins, I think Stellar Lumens occupies a really interesting niche in that it's mostly for settlement. It's a mediator coin frequently. It's almost a lingua franca even amongst cryptocurrencies, and it's very lightweight and fast. And I think one of the use cases is remittances as well. So, but it's mostly used as a mediator between other currencies. So frequently, Stellar Lumens are used and then they return back to the market. So I'll buy Stellar Lumens and I'm going to exchange those Stellar Lumens for another currency, and I'm not going to be charged for that switch. So it's like frictionless. And just in regard to the token burning, that it's an interesting question. I know I would say the most popular and well known of the coins who have this in part of their tokenomics is Binance Coin. Every quarter, financial quarter, they burn a significant amount of their tokens. And the idea is it's rewarding holders of the coin, people who are hodling. Those are just a few of my comments. I don't think that the supply means that much because of the way that it's used, and of course these tokens are subdividable into, of course, just like Bitcoin. So I think that's something else that if all of a sudden one stellar isn't, if the price increases, a half a stellar is just as good as what a whole stellar used to be.
Yeah, I would agree. It's one of those things to where whether it's Binance or whether it's Tether or USDT, I mean, they all burn some of their, coins at some point. And obviously for something like a stable coin, it has no impact. But what you see is we talk about market regime changes, and market regimes can be as simple as the overall investor, I'd say pool would maybe weight heavier towards institutions in early 2019 up until now. I think there's a lot more retail traders coming back in, and you can see it very easily by news that in early 2019 didn't impact the price at all, i.e. things like an announcement that a coin was getting listed on Coinbase and maybe it only pumped by 5%, versus in the past, especially in 2018, that could have had a tremendous impact on the price, upwards of 50%. Now you see things like Nano, which a lot of people, including myself, for full clarity, have been hodling for a long time. And all of a sudden, Kraken just announced that I believe next month they're going to be listing Nano. Now that just, I think, pumped today about 17%, if I'm correct. So with those little signals, I think you can understand the makeup of the traders that are comprised within this industry, and how there's now a shift more towards these retail traders, so that when people like Stellar make an announcement about burning tokens, whether it's part of their tokenomics or not, it really does have a tremendous impact on price, and we are seeing that.
Well, I don't know a ton. Like I said, Stellar Lumens research is not my area of expertise, but I know enough about equities that if Apple's $250 and they announce a stock split, generally speaking, the next day, assuming the Dow and all the indexes open unchanged, I had one today at 250. I'm going to have two tomorrow at 125. I would have to look at the Stellar charts and performance, I guess, over the past month, and then in a month revisit it and see if this market is maturing where, in theory, the organization didn't change. So I agree with Thomas on that. Their core business, their core ideas, they just have less tokens now. So we'll see if it holds true. And if the market cap maintains, a similar structure, then I would say this, market is maturing well, where, that's kind of what should happen. But anyways.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Steve, and to everybody else, this is a question as it relates to the halving, right? So we talk about, is it priced in to the price ahead of time, which we've seen with things like Litecoin, or it didn't move as drastically as people thought because it's priced in. Does that change, in your opinion, kind of going back to what I had said before about more retail traders coming into the space, and retail traders, are trading obviously a lot on speculation, and they use a lot more emotion than data versus the institution and the bots that are actually running the algorithms. So with that said, if there's a flood of retail investors that are coming in, even if it's priced into the price of Bitcoin today, what do you think that could translate to? Increased volatility above and beyond what's priced in? Or do you think it doesn't necessarily change anything?
I would open that question up to Mr. Tim Hesselsweet. I think he's extremely knowledgeable on a wide variety of crypto questions, and I would like to hear his answer, actually.
Sure. Thanks, Steve. So yeah, going on the Stellar issue, we see examples from capital markets. The burn is similar to a split, or in this case, like a reverse split. So I think that there are instances of that, and I think Steve's point on how the market treats that is probably a testament to the degree of fear and greed and speculation or rational pricing inherent in the market. With regards to the halving, that Bitcoin has a algorithmic inflation schedule, and slowing that schedule definitely decreases the supply of those coins. And if demand stays the same, that should mark an upward price pressure on the Bitcoin. I will pull the data from that and have a study in time for our meeting on the New York Consensus Conference on Tuesday, next Tuesday. Yeah, so I think the demand stays the same, supply decreases is a bullish indication, and the extent to which how much that's priced in right now, or how investors will react to it. We'll see what's happened in the past and be able to judge how investors are currently treating it.
Hey, Tim, I have a question for you.
Sure.
When you do pull data, would it be possible to pull kind of the Bitcoin relationship to the market, or I don't like to use the word, but the Bitcoin dominance at the same data points that you pull? Because I think that might also be something important, where if Bitcoin price is rising going into it and it's rising faster than the rest of the market, then I think that kind of adds another vantage point. Or if it's, if it's falling versus everything else but still rising, then maybe, it could be more telling. But I was just figured I'd ask if it's possible.
As you know, at CoinGenius, we have gathered all the data from everywhere, and then are posing interesting questions to ask, and looking at the historical data and seeing what happens. So that is something I can definitely do.
Okay, cool. How about Nick Kearney? Is
It
he
looks like we
still
only
on?
have Jeremy, Cox, and Carl left at this point.
Okay, I was actually going to ask Nick Kearney about Ethereum, but yeah, those were, I guess, the topics for today. I would, echo the theme. I could really go into the index thing, but I'll save that for another day.
Okay, Carl and Jeremy, have any thoughts on the current market?
I heard the thing about Stellar Lumens last night, and it was funny that I had a dentist appointment I had to go to, so I wasn't able to be in for the beginning of the call. But I also found it very interesting about the burn and what that would do to, like, thinking in Steve's mind of, like, all right, is this like a split? Is this like, it's more like not even really a split as much as it is just like a leveling off of the coins. And it's what I started thinking is, like, what if all of a sudden other coins decided that they wanted to do that, and could they do that? Because there's a difference between a stable coin and a coin like Bitcoin that has $21 million, and like, hey, guess what? We're going to burn 1 million Bitcoin or whatever. It's very interesting for for a trader or an investor that's in these coins to be considering.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think the market in general is pretty indecisive right now. As far as like Bitcoin and Ethereum are concerned, I think everyone's kind of waiting for something, and you can kind of get that. You can kind of feel that through alts. You can feel it through kind of everything.
Well, if I may, I would like to add that this would be week 6 that if we're looking at Bitcoin as the metric of measure, then Ethereum, Litecoin, and the rest of the large basket. Oh, there's actually a couple CoinGenius indexes that are market cap weighted, and those have all increased versus Bitcoin 6 weeks in a row. So I would say that quietly I've seen large bids come in the spreads. Someone who has Bitcoin and wants to move to another, I'll say top 20 name by CoinGenius measurements. And I think that is bullish for the whole space, where people may have to become accustomed to Bitcoin being relatively unchanged and other things up 1 or 2%. And that would be a more mature market versus, oh, Bitcoin's up 20%, but Ethereum's up 40%. Those wild swings are not attractive to people putting billions of dollars in, because I can't imagine the stomach sickness if it went the other way.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I keep seeing the sentiment that November historically is always a good month for the crypto space, and that's the I don't know if people are waiting to see that too, and then writing it up, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Well, Mr. Jeremy Sipto, I'm kidding. I got a question for you. How about for next Wednesday, you look into, we'll call it a November effect, and you tell us performance of November's relative to other months. Because there's a precious metals effect. There are certain months where don't know the why part. It just works, and I've ran the data for 20 years. So I think that would be great information for all of the listeners and watchers, where if you're right, I actually agree with you, but I don't know what numbers, and I figure since we do work at one of the best data and API firms in this space, they might be able to help with some of that.
Yeah, I can definitely do some crunching, because I one of the speculations on my side would be that it is it's people and institutions taking a look at their Q4, and November being that month that they really start socking things away, because historically December is vacation time, and you're spending time with the families. But I'll do some digging and see what I can come up with.
Sounds good. I see Mr. Tim Bogert is on the line now. Mr. Bogert, do you have any questions, comments, concerns?
I just came in, and I only have partial voice back from last week, so I don't really know what the subject matter was, but glad to be listening in.
I guess the major themes were, the last point of discussion was if you have any thoughts, opinions, or kind of takebacks on the Stellar Lumens coin burn, or on the upcoming Bitcoin halving, if it's going to be bullish for that asset moving into it, or if it's going to be bearish, or if it's already priced in. Those were, pretty general, I guess, themes.
Right. Well, I don't think it's, pardon me, I don't think it's already priced in. I don't know that we're going to see the astronomical rise that we have historically when the halvings have come. But I also believe that once we see the rise, we'll take another dip. No one, it's an upward trajectory no matter what. But I don't think we're going to see the multi-thousands of % increases like we have in the past. I think those days are over. I think there's more influence in the marketplace with futures and everything else going on that will prevent that. But I still think we're going to see a very bullish trend from now and then in some period of time thereafter. And I think everybody has to watch very closely and try to have an exit strategy where it's close enough to the top that they feel comfortable. Because I do think that just like it has historically, it'll come back down to a level of normalcy.
So no Bitcoin 1 million predictions by the end of the year from Mr. Bogert. Okay.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. I'd be surprised if it goes past 50,000. I'd be pleased if it did. But I'm being a little bit more realistic with my expectations on this.
Sounds good. And it was a pleasure that I got to meet all of these geniuses in Las Vegas for the WCC last week and spend the better part of a week with everyone. I feel that in any organization, especially what I call decentralized, and that's essentially many of the meetings, many of us are in different parts of the country or even world, is very important in team building where you can actually put a name with a voice, name with a face, and get to know someone, your team, your coworker, outside of just, the daily work chat, so to speak. So that I'd like to say that to everyone that's on and everyone that's not on that may listen to this later.
Yeah, absolutely. Last week was, excuse me, a success in every way, shape, and form. The strength of our team, the intellect that's coming to the table, and the way we gelled together is a testament to the way Jeremy has structured our company. And, based on that, I really think that there's just no other way but up.
I couldn't agree more.
I guess we're just going to rename ourselves Team Bitcoin then. We'll just move in conjunction with the Bitcoin price. I love it. I love it. You guys, thank you all for joining today. This has been great. Such great insight. If anybody else has anything else, let us know, especially around live notifications. Steve and Thomas, this goes out to you specifically. I know Tim is already working on one. But we definitely need live notifications. So if you see anything that's interesting that you think is timely, the faster you get it out prior to anybody else sharing it, the more impactful it becomes as an alert to our consumers. So just keep that in mind. If you ever see anything, even if it's just shooting a text to me, if that's quicker, go ahead and do that. But we'd like to get these out consistently, not every day, because it's not like there's something that's so interesting that happens literally every day, but maybe every 2-3 days I think is adequate.
Okay, I have one for you.
Okay. Can you put it in the live notifications channel on Slack and then say it as well? Okay.
I'll tell it to I guess what I call the big four, that is Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash, all made 2-month highs versus Bitcoin. So in their Bitcoin spreads or in Bitcoin Satoshis, all three made 60-day highs today. And yes, I will put that in Slack right now, actually.
Awesome. Thank you. All righty, guys. Thanks again for joining, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.